December 2nd, 1979. You were absent on your first birthday. Maharaj, when did one become aware of one's bondage? Visitor, after one was already in bondage. Maharaj, you will know when you become that. The guesswork is of no use. We hear everyone talking, even a child talks. Everything is correct and in order for the time being, but the sum total of all talk is zero. I must myself know about me, how my beingness appeared from the non-being state. Many come here and talk about their gurus. I tell them that I already know that your guru is great like a mountain. He is greater than what you know him. Do not leave him. In reality, there is nothing. Everything adds up to nothing. In the past, so many things happened. But what is there today? It is as if nothing ever happened. Nothing good or bad has ever happened. Nothing will happen to anybody. All this is very clear to me. Then why disturb them? Someone who does not know me gives my information. How is that possible? Visitor, no reply. Maharaj, you are a judge. Give your judgment. Prior to the appearance of my beingness, I was in the non-being state. Otherwise, I would have stopped it. Why should I lie in a filthy place for 9 months for the appearance of this uncalled for beingness that is in the mother's womb? What an obnoxious place. There was no reason for me to accept all that was happening. That chemical was creating my body for 9 months. Would you have ever allowed being in that stinking place? You could have stopped it, only if you had prior knowledge of its happening. Such things can happen only in a state of non-being. Many millions were spent to construct a building. It took 10 years to complete it. Today it is inauguration. Similarly, when your beingness began its appearance, what was its starting point? An astrologer notes the date and time of delivery for making a prediction. The real date and time of birth is that of conception and not of the delivery. There is an error of 9 to 10 months in the time that is noted. How can the predictions come true? But people believe it. They say that the position of the planets is bound to affect the newborn. I had pointed out this error to an elderly astrologer during our visit to Seer near Dhul. What is the starting point of your belief, graha, that you are? The word graha means both planet and belief in Mariti language. It is not the position of the planet that affects your future, but it is your belief in astrology that affects you. You make your consciousness believe the consciousness is God itself. Whatever consciousness believes happens. It is misuse of a great hidden power. You put your stamp of acknowledgement on the astrological predictions and invite trouble for yourself. What you do not believe cannot trouble you. The pregnant Hindu woman do not look at a lunar eclipse as they believe that it negatively affects the baby. The same is viewed by the Muslim pregnant women without any ill effects. They do not believe in its bad effects. The Hindu ladies are scared as there are cases of deliveries of deformed babies by viewing an eclipse. When did the belief that we exist began? It is the time since when we remember certain events in our life, like going to school, being beaten by parents or teacher, first time riding a cycle, or first time enjoying the birthday celebrations. Prior to yourself, all these events were still happening, but in the absence of your beingness. This first day is when you were around 3 to 5 years old. Prior to the appearance of your beingness, your state was the same as it was 10 days prior to your conception. Hence, I say that you were absent on your first, second, and perhaps the third birthday celebrations. It was the food material that was born and not you. Your arrival was 3 to 5 years after the birth of the body. You feel that you are endowed with knowledge and that you have realized Brahman, but you are ignoring the focal point, and that is your true identity, without taking into account the one who is talking. Your talk has no meaning. When the ignorant talk about Ram and Krishna, they can be excused. They are not told what they are, and it is only ignorance that is talking. But when you talk about Ram and Krishna, it must be remembered that it is Ram or Krishna that is talking. Para-Atma or Para-Brahman is ever present, but its existence is like non-existence. In other words, it exists in an unknowable state. Hence, if a sage exists without being noticed, that is in perfect order. From Para-Brahman, there is existence of the 5 elements, 3 gunas, qualities, Prakriti and Purusha, in that the sun, moon, and all the stars are included. When I was in the non-being state, this creation had not happened. Everything appeared with the appearance of my beingness. My non-being is a perfect state. It is the timeless, unattained Para-Brahman. Without beingness, it is the truth and ever existent. In all existence, you cannot point to a single thing that ever existed. December 3rd, 1979. Consciousness, the formless God. Maharaj, may God give you long life over 100 years. In these years, your identities will go on changing. No identity will stick to you till your end. You will say, I was this way, I was that way. Finally, your identity as a very old man will also vanish. If every identity changed from time to time, what is your achievement that you can say, this I am? With what definite identity are you going to continue and enjoy your possessions? In this entire world, can you point out even a single thing which is changeless? With this background, a sage throws all knowledge overboard. He is free of knowledge. Without the food body, the consciousness cannot appear. In other words, for beingness to appear, a food body form is a must. With passing time, millions of bodies appears. All these bodies are time-bound. After their time, they again merge into the 5 elements. Consciousness appears due to the mutual attraction between the cosmic substance and the cosmic spirit. With consciousness appears the world experience. The mutual love keeps the world alive. Visitor, how does a yogi go into samadhi? Maharaj, the yogi closes the 6 chakras, Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipur, Anahat, Vishuddha, Anya, and the spine, and resides in the Sahasrara, center in the head. Now please tell me, what is that which is responsible for your present form? Visitor, I have another question. After dying, where does one go? Maharaj, on hearing a shocking news, one becomes unconscious. Where did one go? Simply because one regains consciousness, you do not call it as death. In the so-called death, the consciousness does not reappear. Consciousness does not go anywhere. The body becomes unfit for its manifestation. Visitor, what we hear from others is quite different. Maharaj, in a sage, the words come from nirvikalpa, or direct perception. It is not imagined or learnt knowledge. Visitor, you really comment on other gurus or mahatmas. Maharaj, in order to wake up, I take you to your origin. I talk about child consciousness, in which beingness is initially dormant. Just as a raw mango ripens with time, beingness appears in the child consciousness. I have known the child consciousness and I talk about it. How can I criticize others? When I criticize somebody, what should I take him to be? Should I take him as he appears, an individual soul, or as his true nature? Should I consider his height, weight, and color? I am unable to criticize anybody. Only the ignorance and judgment can lead to criticism. I want to say this again and again, that the body formation happens unknowingly, and the knowingness comes after 3 to 5 years. He or she, or it, or anyone, is that knowingness. One does not take external help to know one's knowingness. One has to depend totally on oneself. A child may become anything, poor or rich, ignorant or a sage, but what was at the root that enabled everything to happen? What is the seed or root of any happening? The root or seed is the same for all. It originates from food juices. Out of 5 elemental vegetation, our consciousness resides in the consumed and digested food juices. In the food originates the movement due to the vital breath, along with consciousness, or the sense of being. The language of the vital breath is the mind. Only the food body has a form, but it cannot be anybody's identity. All the rest, that is vital breath, mind, and the consciousness, are formless. There is no white, black, short, or tall there. The consciousness is also referred to as Mahatattva, Brahma Sutra, or Hiranyagarbha. Without our sense of being, how can we recognize God or Ishvara? When I have known my own origin, it is necessary for me to search for others' origin. I never go to meet any gurus, saints, or sages. If anybody invites me to meet any Mahatma, I tell him that his guru is really great, like a mountain. What I am at source, others are the same. For every living being, there is the food body and the sense of being, along with the vital breath. The birth of every living being is the appearance of waking state, sleep, and the sense of being. Those who cannot understand or accept this simple truth about their origin go from place to place in search of knowledge. They imagine and write their own destiny and suffer. You get bound or hanged by your own concepts. One who does not know one's own origin, how can he be expected to know others' origin? But people become gurus, and anyone can gather a following. All knowledge, however great, is all useless if it does not include the knowledge of one's own source. If the greatness of a guru is to be judged by counting the number of his followers, one's vast knowledge can also similarly make one great. Always remember that the greatest thing in your consciousness, without which you cannot even notice the great world. If your knowingness is not, what can you know? Without your knowingness, is there any pain or pleasure for you? A child may say anything, but for its age, all that is in perfect order. While assessing, one has to consider the times and the age. After knowing his bodiless nature, whatever a sage says, that is in perfect order. You must note here that now he knows that he is not the body, hence his utterance is the truth. In the history, you read many different utterances. You must take note of the times when they were said. It is correct for that time. The effect of the time is such that statements are made without thought of the consequent trouble and suffering. The time provides the motivation for the events to happen. Now, while sitting on the floor, I have to take help of my hands in order to get up. This is the result of the time that has passed. The changes happen as per the passing phase. A young man can fight an elephant. That is also a passing phase. Later, he is unable to do it. Where are these phases decided? At the so-called birth, in the astral body, and the necessary changes happen. All the future happenings are not determined by the world, but in the astral body. All the future happenings are filmed and are ready to unfold as per the passing phases. At my 83 years of age, I have to hold a teacup with both of the hands. What is wrong with me? Sufficient aging has taken place in the child which appeared 83 years ago. I call it Har Har Mahadeo. That is, it is all coming to an end, alluding to the battle, cry of the soldier face to face with death. What is the doctor's job? It is to try to hold the consciousness in the body of the patient, not to allow it to vanish. For any reason, if the nourishment does not reach the consciousness, it cannot remain in the body. Since consciousness is the quality of the food essence, proper food supply is a must. In order to see, you need light. This light is provided by burning food in your body, that is, in your stomach. Consciousness is luminous and godly, and it is called Bhagwan or Vasudeo. The consumed food sustains your beingness. The supreme consciousness or the great reality resides in your food material. Food is necessary to keep your memory, I am, intact. There was a time when I existed as if not, and there was no struggle to survive. From that state, the present time-bound state has appeared. It needs sustenance. I know the secret of transition from the trouble-free state to the troublesome. There was a time when my beingness was not present. I came to know the appearance of the beingness. I am its witness. This transition from the non-knowing state to the present knowing state itself is a miracle. How did this transition happen? That is all that I saw. This transition applies to every living form, but a rare one in the human form knows the secret of how it happens. December 4th, 1979. Know your eternal state. Maharaj, our existence is there as long as the food material due to which the child consciousness appeared sustains beingness. When the material gets dried up, our consciousness vanishes. Have you read I Am That? Visitor, yes. Maharaj, after self-knowledge, it is difficult to sustain beingness. The vital breath suddenly leaves the body. In case of Sri Krishna, he continued despite knowing self fully. Visitor, it is said that Bhagwan Krishna attained the highest state of realization. Maharaj, he is perfect in all respects. He could easily mix with the small or the big. He had no pose or stance of any kind. He was in the most natural state, called Sahaja Awastha. Visitor, it is said that life is a circle. One goes where one began. Maharaj, an infant has no memory. It cannot recognize anybody. A very old man loses all knowledge and memory. He is almost like an infant. The old man is alive as long as the child principle exists. When that is no more, the man is declared dead by the people around him, but a sage calls it liberation and not death. Visitor, you always stress on our consciousness. Why? Maharaj, you may have all the knowledge contained in an encyclopedia, but what is your first knowledge? Visitor, first I know that I am. That is my first knowledge. Maharaj, if that first knowledge is absent, what is the use of the rest of your knowledge, however great it might be? Visitor, it is all useless. Maharaj, that is the importance of the knowledge of you are, or of your consciousness. If that vanishes, can you enjoy anything? You may be a very rich man without consciousness. What is the use of all of your wealth? Then, what is great, wealth or consciousness? Visitor, is it enough if we keep in mind what we hear from you? Maharaj, no. It should not remain in the verbal level. Take the example of how the cattle get their nourishment from grass. They eat it, chew it, and then ruminate. You must assimilate what you hear in the same way. You must make it your own. Only then will there be no need to remember it. Visitor, what is the difference between a disciple and his guru? Maharaj, the first is Atma, and the second is Para-Atma. The first has knowledge, and the second transcends knowledge. Millions of dynamic Brahmins play in the Sadguru. Visitor, when I wake up from deep sleep, first I know I am, and I notice the world. Maharaj, your world is in your consciousness, as the sunlight is in the sun. When there is consciousness, there are the 5 elements, 3 gunas, Prakriti and Purusha. Visitor, if I am so great to have this great consciousness, self-realization should be easy for me. Maharaj, how can self-realization be a result of concepts? Visitor, it is said that God is great. Maharaj, God is the primary illusion, may be great. But without your beingness, who will recognize their greatness? You must always be conscious of the greatness of your consciousness. You are never your body. That is also very important. Visitor, truth or the absolute must be full of knowledge. Maharaj, on the other hand, it does not have even the slightest touch of knowledge. This is not a hearsay, but my own eternal experience. The use of the word experience is only for your understanding. In reality, that word has no place. This bodily experience is a nuisance. It is like picking up an infant lying on the road and then taking the trouble to bring it up. Just as one who lifts the infant was not concerned with it, I am not concerned with the world and its experience. There was no compulsion to take care of the child, but it happened out of pity. Could you have avoided it? Visitor, no. Maharaj, the yogis and ascetics are in search of truth. Only the eternal can be called as truth. Is it not? Visitor, yes. Maharaj, the association of truth is very normal for me. My present beingness is like a painful pimple. Since time immemorial, I am acquainted with the eternal and the truth. Whatever they are, none can be a witness to this. Visitor, what is your reaction to envy, hate, and quarrel in the world? Maharaj, I dislike people troubling others and inflicting pain on them, but people cannot give up their wrong tendencies. I ask my beingness, you were not there before, and you are bound to vanish in a short period. What do you want? What will satisfy you? Why are you struggling so much? What is the use of the sense objects when your beingness will be no more? Visitor, that is also our experience about our beingness. Maharaj, whatever you see and do, you instantly know that it was not there prior to the so-called birth. Everybody has directly or indirectly taken initiation as per the religion to which he or she belongs. It is not important to know that principle which takes the initiation. It is not necessary to find out what is the nature of that principle. Who will reply to my questions? Visitor, many such questions haunt us without any lasting solution. Maharaj, all living beings struggle all the time. As compared to the eternal, all existence is momentary. It is only an appearance without any substance. Human existence is like the daydreaming of an idle person lying in bed. All human wants are the desires of a non-entity. As compared to the eternal, the momentary existence of any form is really a non-existence. Then why take all the trouble? At present, I want to exist, I want to be. But how should I be? How should I look? What should my nature be? In what form should I exist? The human thinking is guided by emotions and tradition. It is also the origin and the content of every human form. Visitor, recently I have started reading a book called Amrutan Bhav, written by the sage Yaneshwara, with commentary by Mr. P.Y. Deshpande. Maharaj, I will tell Mr. Deshpande, you are great to have done this work. What comes first, the experience or the experiencer? Visitor, of course the experiencer comes first. Maharaj, what is the nature of the experiencer? And what is his experience of immortality? What is your observation? Visitor, I cannot comment. So far I have read only a few pages. Maharaj, who is it that behaves? The three gunas or qualities, sattva, rajas, and tamas, do all the activity. Who makes use of the qualities in order to behave? Sattva is the quality of the 5 elements, of which the first is space. The interaction or the conflict between the elements ultimately ends up on the surface of the earth. Then vegetation is created with various forms. From that are created the other living beings. Out of these, the best is the human form. What is eternal is the only truth. There is no coming and going, or appearance or disappearance for it. As reality is one and only one, there cannot be any witness to it. What is going on is the ephemeral called the world. As compared to the eternal, the worldly existence is momentary, as if non-existent. All the experiences of a lifespan are restricted within that span. There is no continuity of experiences from one life to another. The eternal does not have the slightest touch of the primary illusion. The sense of being or the consciousness is absent in the eternal. One who feels that one is blessed cannot be realized. As long as there is an idea of virtue or of religious merit, there are no hopes of self-realization. Your present state is untrue, as it is unchanging and not eternal. You have to know your eternal state. Whatever I was not, I threw away all that overboard. After disposing off all my so-called being, I have also disposed of my non-being as well. I am the eternal, which cannot be described as this or that. My observation is in line with the following verse of Swami Ramdas and his book, Das Bodha. Whatever appeared, all that disappeared. Whatever was not, it did not exist. Whatever was left over from the above two, that remained but beyond all description. In this entire world, one who cannot find a witness to one's true being is a rare one. A devotee of God is protected by God, and he is devotee's witness, but a sage cannot find a witness to his true being. There is no witness other than the sage himself. If a visitor insists on his own stand, I encourage him to hold on to it. My only condition is that he should be fully satisfied with his own stand. There should be no disturbance from his mind. All our problems and all our efforts to find a solution are due to the appearance of beingness. In deep sleep as well as after self-realization, when the beingness disappears, the problems are over. When you are ignorant, you can minimize your difficulties by avoiding hurting others. That Ishvara died and won. Then what happened? The same as it has happened here. Maharaj points to himself. My words are difficult to understand and much more difficult to accept. December 5th, 1979. Your consciousness is a cheat. Maharaj, in this world we observe people's grief as a matter of convenience. Visitor, how is that? Maharaj, a husband is in pain to see his wife dead. If we watch a woman when her husband dies, it appears that she may soon join her husband, but we are shocked to hear about her remarriage. Visitor, what is the reason? Maharaj, you do not know what you are. What you think yourself to be goes on changing without your permission and knowledge. How then can your feelings and promises remain unchanged? Visitor, that is true. Maharaj, consider your own case, your own past. You will be surprised to see what you were and what were your thoughts as compared to your present condition. Your own identity is changing from time to time, from a handsome young man to a bedridden old person who needs to be fed by a spoon in his last days. Is there any honesty, any consistency in what you think you are? What is your identity that is under your control? Visitor, I am interested in yoga. Maharaj, what is yoga? It is your union with your ideal. When you try to get anything, you have to consider what will be your identity when you get it. If it is going to take a long time for getting something, you are not likely to be the same as you are now. Due to the uncertainty, striving for something becomes meaningless. If you go into outer space, and if due to a technical problem you cannot return to Earth, your food supply is bound to get over. Then what will happen to your beingness? Your confidence that you are, what will happen to it? Does your self-confidence depend on the world or upon the food juices that are consumed? If your existence is so dependent, what is the use of struggling to do anything? The proof of your being is in the food material. Our beingness is so dependent that it is of no value. If someone has a vision of Ishvara, there is no need to feel great about it. That vision does not make him independent of food material. When the food juices dry up, the beingness leaves without making any announcement. The various words of the Sanskrit language appear to originate under the influence of the knowers of truth. Take the word sattva, which is the first guna or quality. The quintessence of food is so-called sattva. The word is split into sat and twa, which means the existence of twa means you. Hence, sattva means the existence which is you. The quality of the food essence is the knowledge you are. It is the eternal you, which comes to know that it exists. Without a food body, the eternal does not know that it exists. This is not mere knowledge, but your own experience. Because of your body, you, the eternal, know that you are. When your body was not, you did not know about it. The eternal does not need food to sustain itself, but the consciousness, which is the expression of the eternal, needs food. Essence sattva to sustain itself. One who knows the source of consciousness realizes the eternal and realizes the eternal as his or her eternal state. Visitor, when the beingness leaves the body, can we call it death? Maharaj, death is the wrong word. We can call it liberation. When hot water cools, we do not call it death. It is similar to cooling of the body. When the beingness is no more, people say that I am a jnani. What do I know? I only know that the knowledge you are, or your consciousness, is a perfect cheat. You love your beingness, although it is intolerable. This paradox is the cheating. Even a bedridden person, breathing his last, wants to live more. He has lost everything, including memory. His close relatives have to get themselves introduced to him again and again. You might have earned great religious merit, but what will be your ultimate form to take it all along with you? When the drop merges with the ocean, where can it keep its earnings and certificates? What is the relation between the knowledge you are and the knowledge collected by you during your lifetime? When the knowledge you are itself becomes no knowledge, where is the accumulated knowledge? What control can you have over anything if your very being is out of your control? When your beingness vanishes, it is as if it never existed. What is left to talk about? The world is full of paradoxes. Silence. Maharaj, the word ananda or bliss is very liberally used, as in Sadananda, this ananda and that ananda. But remember, ananda is a quality which has no place in the absolute, which is nirguna or non-qualitative. The bliss has a place as long as there is consciousness, but not beyond. Most of the people worship God for material gains. They do not need self-knowledge, and God gives them what they want, worldly possessions and well-being. It is very rare to find a customer for self-knowledge. As long as there is consciousness, we can think of sin and religious merit. The consciousness is time-bound. When the consciousness is not, who is there to suffer sin or enjoy religious merit? When you know you are, with that knowledge, you go on accumulating worldly knowledge. When you do not know you are, who is there to accumulate? You think you are this way or that way. But can you assure yourself that you will always be there to think in the same way? All our actions and experiences are time-bound. Nothing gives us lasting company, including this talk that is going on right now. Visitor, we cannot take anything with us. Maharaj, nothing remains with us permanently. Joy or bliss is a quality, and no quality can remain permanently with us. As long as we know we are, these qualities remain. These talks are like a brush to clear the ignorance, so that the absolute opens up. Mostly people worship God, seeking reward for it. They have no interest in self-knowledge. People sing devotional songs, bhajans, or do meditation in order to get what they want. The true seeker dislikes such devotion, and he is a rare one. Our sense of being is godly. The ultimate purpose of spirituality is to know the self and be really peaceful. Many a time seekers acquire spiritual powers and they get entangled in them. They think they have achieved the ultimate, and that is the end of their spirituality. Visitor, instead of meditating on an external object, meditating on the self within, is this also a kind of worship? Maharaj, that is the normal tradition of approaching the self. It is their faith which prompts them to do that. For all seekers, the ultimate destination is the same, but some practices are difficult, like pushing a cart instead of pulling it. We do not advocate any practices. One who reads Bhagavad Gita correctly reads one's own information in it, and not that of Krishna. One sees oneself as immortal, as eternal. One who takes oneself as the body remains a mumukshu and does not qualify to become a seeker. Maharaj, Atma is not just a word, but it is what one is in reality. One loses one's individuality and remains as the self. Our sense of being itself is the dynamic Brahman or Maya. Your existence without the sense of being is para-Brahman, or the absolute. When we know we are, the world appears along with all the problems. Not knowing you are gives you the rest and peace. Your attention is incomplete. That which is beyond attention is full and complete. Visitor, one must act without expectations. Maharaj, the world is full of activity. The dynamic consciousness, Chaitanya, is full of struggle and conflict. When the I am is gone, all the trouble ends. Visitor, what is the ultimate in spirituality? Maharaj, all the so-called knowledge, jnana, turned out to be vijnana, or beyond knowledge. The knowledge turned out to be no knowledge. Para-Brahman is said to be desireless. It means the absolute is of no use to itself. It may be useful to others. December 6, 1979. Maya is self-love. Maharaj, with the appearance of self-love, the space appears with the beginning of the world. Visitor, with that there is also the appearance of the body, and one tends to acquire things for pleasure. Maharaj, this is the initial stage of the dull and the stupid. Visitor, one develops love. Maharaj, every living being is born as love itself, or as love affected. Despite unbearable suffering, there is love to exist. One who knows what this self-love is liberated, and his self-love vanishes. Visitor, how is Maya related to love? Maharaj, Maya is self-love. When we do not know we are, that state is the perfect order. When we know we are, that is not a problem of an individual, but it is a worldly predicament. Visitor, due to this, some renounce all sensuous delight or gratification. Maharaj, we do not find it in the life of Sri Krishna. A sage is unattached and hence unaffected by the worldly attractions and problems. Visitor, others are attracted to the objects of the world. Maharaj, one's body identity and ego is responsible for it. The ignorant is conscious of the body, but pure Brahman is unconscious of it. Even an infant does not know that it has a body. Visitor, what is it that leads to peace and tranquility? Maharaj, I am not well. Let us stop here. Find out the source of I am, December 7th, 1979. Visitor, what is the cause of ignorance? Maharaj, the knowledge you are is the only reliable knowledge. But man has the habit of collecting knowledge from every source and carry the load on his head. He is told about birth and rebirth. Although birth is not his own experience, he takes it as true. Man's knowledge is full of concepts and imagination. Visitor, what about the law of karma? That is, what we do in this life, the effects we have to suffer in the next life. Maharaj, as you take yourself as the body, the law of karma affects you. You even try to benefit by it. If you know yourself as the self, the law will not affect you. Visitor, the law of karma scares us. Maharaj, our sense of being is the quality of the quintessence of food and the shape of the food material is taken by us as our form. Your eternal nature is without the sense of being. When the vital breath leaves the body, it becomes inert. It is like the extinguishing of a flame. Does the flame go anywhere? When the body drops, there is no going anywhere. At the so-called birth, there is no coming from anywhere. The self is everywhere. It does not leave any space to travel to. Silence. Maharaj, when I talk, I do not talk about any individual. I talk about the nature of consciousness. The cycle of creation, sustenance, dissolution goes on undisturbed. No Mahatma or incarnation like Ram or Krishna can stop the cycle. I talk about incarnation. What was there prior to calling one an incarnate? What leads to the change from an ordinary person to an incarnate? You never think as to what you were prior to the appearance of the body, and how the knowledge, I am, which did not exist, began to appear. You are so habituated to living in concepts that you entertain yourself by watching dramas and movies. You get lost in somebody else's imagination devoid of any content. That is how you pass your valuable time. The fond concepts of a prophet become a religion for his followers. Instead of following somebody, find out how the confidence I am, which depends upon breathing, made an appearance. Without going to the source of I am, to talk of Ishwaram Brahman has no value. Everyone knows that I am was absent and it suddenly made an appearance. Now you know you are. Other than this, what is your knowledge? Your main job is to find out the source of I am. Take the example of the dream world. When the sense of being appears in deep sleep, the dream world begins with a new body for you. Silence. Maharaj, is not the dream world nothing other than the creation of your consciousness? Visitor, yes. Maharaj, while watching a dream, one forgets that one is out of the dream and sleeping comfortably in bed. In reality, witnessing of the dream happens without any involvement. Even in the dream, there is identification with the dream body which suffers. The dream world appears to be real until one wakes up. Sometimes one dreams oneself to be dead. The world takes birth in your consciousness. The waking state consciousness gives rise to the waking world, and the dream world consciousness to the dream world. Nothing exists in the absence of your consciousness. This means that our consciousness contains everything. December 8, 1979. Birth and death is a myth. Maharaj, our sense of being is the quality of food essence made of the 5 elements. There is only a food body, but no individual. There is manifestation which contains everything. There is no individual who is born or who dies. There is only an appearance and disappearance, like a flame. Coming and going is a myth. The food material or sattva gives strength to the gunas, or the quality of sattva, rajas, and tamas, due to which activities happen. Due to aging, the food body cannot give sufficient strength for the activity. There is all-around weakness, including that of the physique and intellect. When I am not the 5 elements, I cannot be the body. Hence, the 3 qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas are not mine. In the 3 qualities, the main is sattva. Our sense of being is its quality. The sattva provides light and strength to rajas and tamas. When anything burns, there is light. The food body burns, giving rise to the light of consciousness in which you see the world. Visitor, what is Atma? Maharaj, it is not just a word. Atma means undivided you. Atma, or our being, cannot be felt without sattva, or the food essence body. December 9th, 1979. Your essence is a borrowed being. Maharaj, the knower of mind is unaffected by it. One gets involved with the mind due to one's body identity. due to one's identification with the body. Visitor, normally our mind controls us. Maharaj, take the example of a burning incense stick. I can smell it. I am neither the stick nor its smell. In the same way, I smell my presence due to the food body. I am neither the body nor the sense of presence, consciousness. Visitor, why did Adi Shankara take Mahasamadhi? Dropped his body at an early age. Maharaj, I have nothing to do with the continuation or the exit of this sense of presence. Breathing happens continuously. The breath comes in and goes out of the body in spite of you. If you are not the breath or vital breath, how can you be the mind? Because you can see your mind, you are separate from it. The body is made up of the 5 elements. When you are not the elements, how can you be the body? Due to ignorance, you consider death of the body as your death. But you are that which separates and leaves the body. You have no death. I have no expectation from this body and its existence. I have no expectation from you. Whether you visit me or not, it does not matter. Your existence is borrowed, being and time-bound. It is bound to go. What can you expect from it? Visitor, why did Shankara depart at a young age? Maharaj, you will know it when you will be like him. Visitor, the other day anger came to me. I do not say that I got angry. With this attitude of separation from anger, can there be irresponsible behavior? Maharaj, the anger is related to mind. Are you the mind? What are you? Who watches the flow of thoughts? Silence. Maharaj, there is no question of identifying with the mind. Even if you identify with consciousness, that will also vanish. Visitor, but we need this consciousness. Maharaj, without any need of consciousness, you have to suffer because of your consciousness. Visitor, all our needs are because of consciousness. Without it, there are no needs. Maharaj, you are uttering the words that you have heard. Words cannot describe the liberated. Visitor, then what should I do? Maharaj, do not do that which you feel like doing, but nothing stops. Even if there is no need to do it. You're waking in the morning. From what did it arise? Visitor, no reply. Visitor, if someone is sure that he has self-knowledge, what would you say to him? Maharaj, that is a certain sign of being in ignorance. Many visit me seeking my confirmation for their self-realization, but they fail to get it. There are many places where self-knowledge is imparted, but the way it is done here, you may not come across elsewhere. One has to observe the changeless amongst the changeful. The experience of day and night is changeful, not changeless. The contentment which is dependent is not true. The true contentment is tasteless. That is, in the true contentment, there is no sense of being. Whatever can be witnessed cannot be your true self. Visitor, if I am fully contented with what I have understood, Maharaj, then stay right there. That is enough. I do not want to displease anybody, for I am here to uproot the very cause of displeasure. If someone becomes happy by coming here, do I need his blessings? If someone leaves with displeasure, should I seek his pardon? It is not the self which becomes happy or unhappy. It is the mind only which is not important. Visitor, although the experiences change, the witness remains the same. Maharaj, that changes, due to which the witnessing happens. You are able to see a distant star using a telescope. In the same way, consciousness is a telescope by which you observe objects. Is it your work? Visitor, it is the work of consciousness. Maharaj, witnessing happens. It cannot be called as work. Hence, a witness is not a doer. Visitor, our body is also like a telescope. Maharaj, the body is like mud. Visitor, it is only food material. Maharaj, whoever may visit me, my talk is not to please anyone. One may see me talking contrary to one's expectations. The listener hears with his body identity as a man or a woman, hence the misunderstanding. How can I talk in support of one's ignorance? I speak the truth, whether it agrees with your opinion or not. In a dream, one sees oneself as a 5-year-old boy. He grows to the age of 100. He experiences good and bad things and finally dies. The dream ends there due to waking. In the dream, what was true and what was false? In the dream, one might even see Lord Brahma. While watching the dream, the witness of the dream was forgotten, and one became a participant in the dream world. To whom did the dream world with this dream body appear? Is the witness a part of the dream world? Was the dream world seen by a sleeping body, by the dream body? When the dream ended, what happened to the Lord Brahma seen in the dream? Will he reincarnate? Visitor, he never existed. Maharaj, in the dream experience, what was false? In deep sleep, that sense of waking was false and foolish. Visitor, if this life is equally false, why did I take this birth? Maharaj, you are telling a lie knowingly. You would have never taken birth. It has happened without your knowledge. You came to know about it 3 to 5 years later. Knowingly, who would enter the womb to rot there for 9 months? December 10th, 1979. Intellect is the product of mind. Maharaj, in this world you come across different kinds of forms. All these are time-bound. Visitor, do all these forms have knowledge? I am so-and-so? Maharaj, that is only in human beings. Visitor, does an infant know that it is an infant? Maharaj, it takes 3 to 5 years to know it. How old were you when you first recognized your mother? Visitor, about 4 years old. Maharaj, before that, you did not even know that you existed. Visitor, can we say that the consciousness was dormant? Maharaj, yes, like in a sleep. The towel can be set on fire. Your consciousness was like fire in this towel. Is there fire in this towel? Visitor, yes, dormant. Children utter words. Is it knowledge? Maharaj, that is like a parrot. They do not know what they talk. Before the age of 3, there is no intelligence, even to know one's existence. When the knowledge I am is absent, there cannot be any expectations to be. Visitor, with self-knowledge, does it become clear that one is not the consciousness? Maharaj, who has self-knowledge? Is it the body? Visitor, there is nothing that knows. Maharaj, then who is speaking? Visitor, I do not know. Maharaj, then take all this as false. Visitor, I want more clarification on this. Maharaj, the intellect develops after collection of knowledge. The education is meant to develop intellect. Without proper education and training, can you call someone intelligent? Visitor, no. Maharaj, can you teach a 2-year-old child which does not know it is? Visitor, no. What is the use of the mind? Maharaj, one has to use one's mind in order to develop the intellect. Intellect is the product of the mind. Visitor, is not a spiritual mind a handicap in worldly activities? Maharaj, one has to develop a mind to succeed in this world. You feel like asking something profound, but are unable to ask. Visitor, when I put a question to you, you point out my mistake. That mistake is because of my body identity. Does it mean that all this discussion here is to know that there is nothing? Maharaj, all this is a material talk, a result of food essence. Silence. Maharaj, the ultimate purpose is to attain the desireless Parabrahman state. At other places, You will be drawn into more and more activities for better achievements. Visitor, the confidence that we are is useful to us. Maharaj, without that, how will you do your activities? Visitor, why do other spiritual teachers refrain from telling the truth? Maharaj, they have their own interests. The promotion of desirelessness will affect their own spiritual business. That must go on. Listening to my talks, one develops the conviction that one's birth itself is a fiction. It has no reality. Obviously, one knows that there is no birth, no death. There is no coming and going. That gives rest to all unnecessary activities. Visitor, to know intellectually that one is unborn and to actually realize it, these two are not the same. Maharaj, you already know that you are prior to intellect. You are prior to even the consciousness. 100 years ago, you were present, but there was no consciousness. Do you disagree? Visitor, no. Maharaj, the eternal knows that there was no consciousness. All that is known through consciousness is the ephemeral. The so-called birth and death are a part of the transient. Visitor, what is birth? Maharaj, the appearance of I am, or the sense of being, is the so-called birth. The eternal does not have the sense of being. Birth means becoming conscious of one's presence. It took 9 months in the womb and a few years outside for the appearance of the sense of being. It is like cooking a food material by heating and stirring and adding salt and chilies, etc. for a taste. It took approximately 4 to 6 years for the taste I am to appear. It is not the birth of someone, he, she, or it. The content of the womb was the knowledge I am in dormant condition. December 11th, 1979. Ultimately, knowledge is ignorance. Maharaj, the so-called birth is the appearance of ignorance which prevails till the so-called death. A rare one knows this ignorance and observes all the so-called knowledge as useless. A jnani finds that the existence is not worth the trouble it demands. What you learn here you cannot expect to hear elsewhere. There you will get entangled with activities. Visitor, what about the purity of Brahmins and the untouchability of the lower castes? Maharaj, all these are happenings in sheer ignorance. In self-knowledge, there is no place for knowledge. Even that of knowledge I am. All of it gets washed out. Have you heard this anywhere? Visitor, no. Maharaj, for some spiritual teachers, consciousness is the ultimate. You are not the body, but the dynamic consciousness, Chaitanya. They do not go beyond consciousness. Even my guru told me, you are consciousness, God. You have to find yourself what lies beyond that. Visitor, is a sage always in bliss? Maharaj, the body is on fire. Self-knowledge has a strange quality. Sometimes it is unbearable. Translator, it is the consciousness that becomes unbearable. Maharaj, how did you ask that question? Other than consciousness, what is there to become bearable or unbearable? In spirituality, one attains a state of non-duality. There is neither I am nor others. When there is one, others are bound to accompany. Self-knowledge is profound and mysterious. When there is one needs many. One is never satisfied with the bare minimum necessities. One never tries to experience the bliss of being. Instead, one desires more happiness by ever-increasing acquisitions. Why do people struggle for more? Translator, one cannot be at peace with consciousness and try to forget it in activity. Maharaj, are people content with the bliss of the self? Atmananda? Silence. Maharaj, does consciousness become conscious of attention, or the attention gives attention to consciousness? What is your experience? You come to know anything because of consciousness. Without your consciousness, is there any knowing? Is not knowing painful like a pinprick? In order to forget it, or to make the pain bearable, one gets involved in activities. Without Guru's grace, one cannot be out of this trouble. We take ourselves to be that, which in reality we are not. That is the cause of all our suffering and unhappiness. If you are everything, there is no fear. The presence of others is the cause of fear. Does anybody think on these lines? Visitor: No, I have not heard this anywhere. Maharaj: All words come from a source other than the self. The self has no language of its own. A 2-year-old child has no language of its own. It learns from the mother. Initially, we are free of language. We learn it from others. What is not ours has to go finally. If we live long, the language leaves us. Visitor: Is the self full of happiness? Maharaj: The self is free of grief, hence it does not need happiness. The eternal is the only truth. The untruth is time-bound. It comes and goes. The ignorant have no choice but to live life as it unfolds. Maharaj: The consciousness is godly. Still, it cannot give indefinite company to the eternal. The consciousness cannot be eternal. A Jnani is an expression of the eternal in a form. He is not the form, but only appears to be so. He is the eternal. The consciousness cannot give company to the Jnani indefinitely. What does it mean? Translator: It means consciousness is bound to leave the Jnani. Maharaj: Is not living in a form painful? Life is full of trouble. The experience of the universal consciousness is full of trouble, except that there is no question of profit or loss there. The pain is due to the wrong identity, due to ignorance. One is punished for considering oneself as that which is not. Under these circumstances, should I impart knowledge? Translator: The earnest seeker needs it. Maharaj: There are some people who always go for the best, including self-knowledge, but they are not prepared to pay the price for it. They save even a beedi without offering it to anyone. People come to listen and depart in the middle of talks without taking leave. Some people ask irrelevant questions. I tell them not to waste their time and energy. Only try to find out why and how the beingness made its appearance. This beingness was absent 100 years ago. This is your direct knowledge. Why and how it appeared should also be known directly, without referring to books or to other people. Visitor: Our knowledge is full of concepts. Maharaj: The concepts sustain ignorance and give rise to fear. Once there was a guru sitting amidst his disciples. Every disciple was earlier told separately about a basket full of garlands. The disciples had to garland the guru one by one. In case of any doubt, one could skip the garlanding without telling anybody. The first disciple lifted the lid of the basket and picked a garland. He dropped it immediately in the basket as it was a cobra. The same was repeated by other disciples. The last disciples, who had full faith in his guru, picked a garland and made from fresh, cute flowers. This disciple was free of concepts, hence fearless. Concepts lead to delusion and misapprehension. Consider your beingness as God and worship it with your sense of being. Thereby your beingness will become God in reality. God is consciousness or knowledge. Guru is also knowledge. The worship is advocated in the devotion with attributes. Saguna Bhakti. This way, when one knows this knowledge, its true nature as ignorance becomes clear. Outwardly, what appears as knowledge is pure ignorance at source. Maharaj: This way the knowledge takes away the ignorance, and what remains is the perfect order. Visitor: Then how should a man behave in the world? Maharaj: If you wish to study a tree, should you watch the foliage or the roots? Visitor: Roots. Maharaj: Your question does not originate from the roots. If someone talks something irrelevant, I ring him right there. Visitor: Why is I am knowledge so important? Maharaj, without it, did you have knowledge of your world? Then how can you understand it? How can you underestimate it? Visitor, how to get rid of the concepts of birth and death? Maharaj, when you know the origin and cause of your consciousness, there will be no birth or death for you. It is like catching a thief. The I am knowledge was absent. It has suddenly entered like a thief. Here the night signifies ignorance. The eternal never said I am. This thief which entered says I am. We must find out as to where from this thief entered. This thief did not enter alone, but with cosmic spirit, Purusha, and cosmic substance, Prakriti. That is, the male and the female aspect. And what is the meaning of this happening? It is I am, that is all. You were in the state of non-duality in which the sense of being was absent. Due to this thief, the duality started with I am and the experience of the world. Silence. Maharaj, the cosmic spirit is the experience of silence in which there are no words. The words begin with the cosmic substance, which is the female aspect. The absence of sense of being is the ideal. The activities begin with the appearance of sense of being. In deep sleep, as well as in samadhi, the sense of being is absent and there is contentment. The appearance of sense of being is the beginning of conflict. In its absence, there is peace and tranquility. Elsewhere, you will be taught faithful observance of the duties for success and happiness. Here, I show you the futility of action and remove the very cause of disturbances. I show you why and how actions are not needed for real contentment. By activities, you may feel better for some time, but none of those actions would give you eternal contentment. In the absence of sense of being, there were no needs, including the craving to be or exist. The sense of being gives rise to all kinds of needs. The people turn to spirituality only when there is a rise of self-knowledge in them in dormant condition. Just as the so-called birth happens unknowingly, the rise of self-knowledge happens unknowingly. In the absence of knowledge, the sun, rise. People do not develop interest in spirituality. The dormant condition is like the existence of fire in the towel. Other teachers will tell you how to achieve perfection. None will tell you that you already are perfect prior to doing anything. The question is only of knowing it directly. Silence. Maharaj, to a new visitor. You say you have no guru. From your talk, it appears you have had a guru. Visitor, really? I have no guru. Maharaj, you are hiding something. In spirituality, you should be frank and open. What do you understand by the term guru? Visitor, he is a spiritual teacher. Maharaj, guru means consciousness or knowledge. When you met him, he woke up the knowledge within you. That is why you have developed interest in self-knowledge. Spirituality is the give and take of knowledge. Guru is the giver of knowledge, and disciple is the receiver, also knowledge. Jnana. December 12th, 1979. Can reading scriptures help? Maharaj, due to ignorance, people identify with their bodies. This identity has an end by getting burnt or getting buried. What you are in reality, as I tell you, does not get destroyed. It separates from the dead body. That which leaves the body is the form of God. The knowledge I am is God. The knower of this God is a jnani. Silence. Maharaj, one believes in death due to ignorance. If death were a reality, even in a single case, all the living beings would have died. A body is alive due to consciousness. Due to the separation of consciousness, the bodies can be said to have death. As you are the consciousness and not a body, you have no death. The world has originated from a cause, consciousness, as small as an atom. Can you create a mountain from a mustard seed? But it has actually happened. Hence, this world is false. Even then, one has to behave properly and take care of oneself and one's dear ones, taking lead to confusion and chaos. Despite all the efforts, there is so much misery in the world. A life full of contentment is possible only after self-realization. The evening talks begin at 5 p.m. and last until 6:30. Without question and answers, one would find it very boring to spend this 1.5 hours. Similarly, in the false world, a true behavior is advised. Even then, one must know what is true and what is false. And when one knows the why and how of our presence in this world, one's work is done. The Maya or illusion shows us everything as false, but she herself is a cheat. The world appears in the light of our beingness. Our beingness is so called as Ishwar or God. Visitor, why are we so unhappy? Maharaj, let us consider our dream experience. If a king sees himself as a beggar, can he be happy? Our condition is also similar, even in this waking state. We do not know what we are. We believe ourselves to be that, which in reality we are not. How can that lead to peace and tranquility? What is needed is correct knowledge and not more and more worldly acquisition. Visitor, our worldly success gives temporary satisfaction. Maharaj, 100 years ago we did not know that we were, that we existed. Now we know our presence. That is the blunder. We take our being as true. Our problems begin there. In self-knowledge, our beingness ends with all its problems. Visitor, it is so nice to be in your presence. Maharaj, you have been continuing your stay too much. You must also give others a chance. I tell you once again that you are not your body, but the dynamic consciousness, Chaitanya Atma. That is enough. Now do not stay here any longer. It is like getting your son married. Thereafter, how to increase his family and take care of it. His business, not yours. Whatever is your knowledge, I am. It is honest, it is dishonest, it is Maya, it is Brahman. Have you heard this? Now that is enough. You may leave. Maharaj, Parabrahman, the Absolute, is desireless. What is the use of this beingness to it? One who knows the truth remains aloof. Speechlessness befits the wise one. Visitor, can reading the scriptures help? Maharaj, there is no end to reading scriptures and getting confused. In Mahabharata, the origin of Kauravas and Pandavas, etc., confuse you more and more. Instead, know your beingness as light, Bhagawan, and godly, and meditate on it. That would suffice. Your beingness is the seat of the world. It is your main capital. Take it with you and leave. I am pointing out to you your greatest and most valuable possession. Meditate on it and be free. Visitor, we are so thankful to you. Maharaj, some visitors take knowledge from us, and with that they argue with and quarrel with us. If that knowledge were their own, it would have been a different matter. Visitor, it is like giving a sword to a madman. Maharaj, in deep sleep, your feeling of false waking gives rise to a false dream world. How can a false thing give rise to something true? Similarly, the root of waking world is fake. The root is I am. How can it give rise to a true world? Hence, this world is equally false. Transcendence from Becoming and Being, December 13th, 1979. Maharaj, have you taken the mantra? Visitor, yes. Maharaj, the mantra reminds you of your true identity. Your parents gave you a certain name, and all call you by that name. Mantra is called Nama, name. Mantra, that is, calling yourself as you are in reality. This mantra is very powerful and effective. My guru gave me this mantra. As the result is all these visitors from all over the world. That shows its power. There are different mantras. Every mantra has a purpose, which is achieved by continuous chanting of the mantra. You do not know how your breathing takes place. Then how difficult will it be to know the limitless? So far you have asked many people many things, and the net result is you are still in ignorance. One question you never asked anybody. That question is whether you exist. You exist, and that is your direct knowledge. You know it even in total darkness. Now try to know yourself without asking anyone. Your capital is the knowledge you are. Make use of it. Meditate on it. Buy it. Visitor, can I use my own language, my mother tongue? Maharaj, meditation is without words. From a flower, a fruit appears, and there are seeds in the fruit. Prior to the appearance of the flower, something happened in the plant for the appearance of the flower. For everyone, the first knowledge is of one's own existence. Thereafter, there is knowledge about others, and there is the beginning of activities. We act based upon the meaning of the sound that we hear. The listener of the sound is not in the body. The body is made of the quintessence of food. The quality is our sense of being. The listener of sound is not the food body. He is the knower of consciousness. Maharaj, to a new visitor, all this knowledge, what is its use to you? Visitor, to be free of ignorance. Maharaj, with this knowledge one becomes free of all becoming as well as all being. What remains to be done for him? Visitor, nothing. Maharaj, a jnani becomes free of good and bad, profit and loss, birth and death. All the five elements take birth in the consciousness into which they finally merge. Some teachers declare consciousness as Ishvara or Brahman, and that is what we are. But this is not the ultimate knowledge. This knowledge is in the field of Maya or illusion. Visitor, do visions indicate spiritual progress? Maharaj, one is able to see visions of gods as per one's imagination. Prior to self-realization, sage Namdeo used to see Lord Vital in human form. Vital used to play and eat with Namdeo. For him it appeared to be the ultimate in spirituality. Other contemporary sages like Yaneshwar and Muktabai pointed out that Namdeo was not yet ripe to be a sage. The ultimate is beyond all forms. All experiences and visions are in the field of consciousness, which is the quality of food essence. One has to realize oneself as a knower of consciousness. If you stop eating, will you be conscious? Visitor, no. Maharaj, while watching a dream, are you really awake? Visitor, no, but that is known after real waking. Maharaj, if body is still your identity, it means all this knowledge has fallen on deaf ears. In this world, we come across poetic imagination and non-truth. None has time to go to the roots and to discover truth. Movies have become so popular and cinemas are overcrowded. What is there other than somebody's imagination? Prophet Muhammad advocated polygamy for Muslims. The ratio of women to men was very high, and it was necessary for every woman to get married. That would also help to increase the Muslim population. All these happenings disturb our minds. A rare one tries to find answers from within oneself. One goes to the source of oneself. One is not the body, which is only food material. The consciousness is the quality of the food body. Hence, one is also not the consciousness. What I am, without this consciousness? To this question there is no reply. Even Vedas became silent at that point. The world is contained in a grain of food. How can it be true? With this observation, one becomes aloof and unconcerned. play of the five elements. We hear praise of a deity recited in benedictory verse at the beginning of a drama. In the verse there is some incantation of the events that follow. Similarly, my present sickness, cancer, is indicative of the fullness that will be experienced in the near future. Maharaj, to a visitor, what is good for me? Can you accept it boldly? Visitor, that is doubtful. Maharaj, if you get eternal sleep, will you be happy? Visitor, silence. Maharaj, the events that happen, are they because of you or due to the five elements? How can you expect peaceful behavior in the five elements? Whatever may happen, you have no part to play in it. Because of your body identity, you experience happiness or unhappiness, and you have to believe in birth and death. All your organs of sensation are the function of the five elements. Your sense of being itself is the quality of the food essence made of the five elements. Silence. Maharaj, the word that you utter is the quality of space. Physical touch is the quality of air. Form is the quality of heat. Juice is the quality of water. And smell is the quality of the earth. Where are you in all these sense organs? You may try to control the body made of the five elements, but how can you control the limitless five elements around you? For you, there are five sense organs, but the same are operating as the five elements outside. The five elements come together to form the sattva, or the quintessence of food, in which there is your sense of being. Someone comes to know one's being. Who comes to know cannot be said. The sense of being in human beings identifies with the body as its form. There are in all 84 lakh different forms like worms, birds, animals, etc. All forms are due to the five elements. All activities due to the five elements. The existence of me in human beings as the doer is imaginary. When you come to know this reality, all your worries will be over and all your identities will come to an end. The Absolute has no color, no design, no name, no form. All the names and forms appear on the earth, and all the imagination and writings are due to the consciousness in human form. The world is full of books containing concepts of their authors. What we think ourselves to be, that goes on changing with time, from an infant to a child, to a boy, to a young man, to a middle-aged, to a very old man. Our identity changes with time. No identity is steady, and our knowledge about ourselves is valid only for that moment. Hence, what we think we are at any time has no value. It is all meaningless. The identities are not ours, but they are the states of food material which contain somebody's sense of being. When I amness goes, people call it death. Knowing one's existence is miserable, and it is a quality of the food body. When one does not know one's existence, that is in order and fine. When you do not know you are, is there any fear? Visitor, there is no fear at all. Maharaj, when I know myself to be, I am not that. I am that which I cannot know. To go further, I am the soil. I am the stones. I am the food consumed. I am also that which is dropped in the toilet every morning. I am not an individual, but the love and the feelings. Instead of calling the transient as untrue and a cheat, we call it Maya, the illusion. We come across people who are confident that they know a lot. In my case, I know that I do not know anything. Instead of saying that one lived for 100 years, we should say one suffered for 100 years. You are a witness to the events that happen around you. Identification leads to happiness or unhappiness. If there is no witnessing, will there be happiness or unhappiness? Without asking anyone, you can say that there was a time when there was nothing to witness. This was your experience 100 years ago. Hence, witnessing itself is a sin. The sin is not of an individual, but of the whole world. An idol of stone made by man, when worship gives you what you desire. This consciousness is much more powerful. When worshipped as God, it can give you anything. For the earnest seekers, liberation is possible just by listening to this knowledge. There is no need to suffer by sacrifices and penance. All the false identities drop off, and the ultimate remains in its purity. Visitor, then what should I do? Maharaj, about that you need not worry now. Things will happen around you as they need to happen.